path was just too hostile for me. Far too hostile.
After 6 days of driving on hot, dusty and deserted roads, arriving in the sizable town of Jima was a major event for everyone, not least for the townspeople who had never seen overland travellers before. Jima was the last chance to stock up on supplies before tackling East Africa's most remote region. And as usual, the shopping trip meant curious crowds and occasionally unwelcome attention.
Lift it up, come in, put it on my shoulder.
Are you ready?
Heading out of Jima after a couple of riotous evenings overindulging in the local moonshine called Tech, the group knew they were approaching the most difficult terrain of the trip. After lengthy discussions, they had all decided to head for the Omo Valley, East Africa at its most untamed. It was not an area Dave Barton had ever visited before, and a few of the group were apprehensive. The roads on the map were barely more than mud pathways. And although the local villagers seemed eager to help, their directions were not always reliable.
Which is best road, there or there? That one's best. No, thanks. On to that.
Yeah, where your foot is here.
How's the look, Mando?
Pretty shit, basically. I mean, like the road's on the Michelin map and it says recognised track. I'm not sure who's ever recognised it as a vehicle track, so that's what the Michelin map's supposed to be all about. Problem is now we're on the side of a steep drop and obviously no vehicles have been down here for probably a couple of years, so like...
Yeah, you've got a broken train.
We don't know how stable the ground is as regard like landsliding, and if the landslides then the truck goes and we walk.
For days on end, this was to be the pattern of the group's existence as the truck inched slowly towards the Omo Valley. Sometimes they could take a bone-jarring ride in the back. More often than not, they had to push.
Yesterday was more of the same. It was, we've got the advantage today that we haven't got a rotten bloody great precipice to fall over the edge. But it's still quite hard work, you know? Isn't it, Gav?
Yeah, hold on for that.
I'll definitely vouch for that. Okay.
Don't want to leave him with a step, though.
So the front end will probably slide this way.
All right.
Yeah.
Yesterday we make 5 kilometers, today we make 500 meters.
You'll be okay, but you just got to keep at it. Slowly, inch by inch. Yeah, that's fine. It's part of the fun though. I mean, it's not a holiday. It's not makes an expedition.
Indeed, for much of the time, it was more like being part of a chain gang. Some of the group expressed resentment at the fact that they were paying for the privilege of being put through such arduous conditions. Others were more philosophical about what they'd been able to achieve.
Well, I think we've done bloody brilliant.
We're absolutely shattered, but we're going to do it. And knackered.
I was expecting some of this. That's what I like. We've made up to my eyeballs. I'm happy as a piggy buck.
All day, every day, it seemed as if the group might end up pushing the truck all the way to the border, 250 kilometres away. Or at least that some of the group would be.
Oh, sorry, we're just being bitchy here. Sorry, we're just saying that it seems to be only half of us doing any effort here, and a lot of other people are... Never mind, we'll be alright, we'll get it.
Steep, very sheer rock. There's another possible road. Is mud track like just come up, it's maybe less steep, but that might be muddier and more slippery. So I guess I'm going to check them out and decide which one to go for. Then I think we're at the top, and then from there it's down, which will be skidding down. It'll be difficult again, but I mean it's skidding downhill, so it's not such hard work as trying to crawl uphill. But well, hopefully we'll get to the river for lunchtime anyway.
Unexpectedly, when they arrived at the River Okobo, they found that others had got there before them. These are the people of the Surma tribe. The group had heard about the Surma, but had never expected to meet any. The Surma women are distinguished by their extended lower lips, into which ornate clay discs are inserted during tribal ceremonies. For all concerned, it was a remarkable encounter. It was obvious that the Surma people were as surprised to see a group of European travellers turning up at their riverbank as the travellers were to see them. At first, the camera proved too much for some of the young Surma, but their shyness was short-lived. Word soon spread to the nearby village that some extraordinary-looking people had turned up at their river. As the crowd of onlookers grew, the travellers also overcame their shyness, taking the opportunity to have a welcome and much-needed bath. While two young Surma women attended to their bathing, careful to keep their clay-lit plates away from the water, two of the European women, Greta and Caroline, shaved their legs. The only thing lacking from this extraordinary scene was a venerable anthropologist to comment on the similarities and differences between the two groups as each went about the common task of getting clean.
Worth it is worth it, certainly. I mean, the people here are wonderful, absolutely wonderful. I've never seen anything like it before. They're just the sort of thing you see out of National Geographic, and here we are. And my friend here. It's a lot of hard work getting here, but certainly well worthwhile. Fantastic.
I mean, just look at this place. The people here are absolutely amazing. It's like nothing on earth. It's terrific. It's just, well, you know, you see these things in books, but you just don't think they're actually for real.
When everyone, whether African or European, was thoroughly clean and when curiosity had been satisfied on both sides, the two groups parted, each to their own destiny. The travellers hit the road once more. So far, the group had stuck together, just because there was no alternative, no turning back. But Dave Barton's map now indicated that there was an airstrip at Tume, and by his reckoning, they weren't far from it. Faced with the prospect of more acacia thorns, more pushing, more dirt, and more sickness, several members of the group couldn't wait to quit the expedition and fly back to civilization. Ethiopian Airlines seemed to offer hope of escape.
don't think it's going to happen here from Tuma. If we're going to be on the road to Maji almost immediately, but from Maji, yeah, if we can get a light aircraft back into Addis and meet up with the expedition in Malawi, it'd be great. But I've had enough of Ethiopia, health-wise, stress-wise, physically, mentally. Yeah, it's time to leave for me.
But there weren't any planes. So there was still only one way to get out of the Omo Valley. Progress was painfully slow, even when, at one impassably muddy turn in the forest road, a local road gang miraculously turned up to help. For those like Isabel who had hoped to escape by plane from Tume, the sense of bitter disappointment simply multiplied the effects of exhaustion and despair.
How many? 4? 5 days of this?
Maybe this might be the 6th day.
Could be the 6th. Every day's same. Ethiopia's just not going to let us go. He's beating us.
But everyone knew they couldn't afford to let Ethiopia beat them. Even if it meant building the road as they went, they had no choice but to press on.
But I mean, the thing is, when you get through it, like, all right, we're digging again now, but you get a, really good sense of achievement. You know, it gives you a real high, doesn't it, Dean? You think, yeah, we've done it. And we're going to make that border. We're going to make it, aren't we?
As soon as possible.
Bloody kills us, we'll make that border.
I think everybody's a bit knackered now. Food's getting short, water's gone, riverbed's dry, so like, it's an expedition with a capital X, isn't it?
And just when they thought they'd seen it all, disaster struck again. The truck got stuck in a dried-up riverbed, seriously stuck. Day and night, they worked to free her. There was no time to lose. The rains were about to start, and within days, or even hours, the riverbed in which the truck was trapped would be a raging torrent. Nobody underestimated the seriousness of the situation. Would they make it out of this ravine? Would they make it to the border? Would they make it at all?
Are they spinning?
Beyond 2000 next looks at the latest designs in electric guitars and how pigs are helping in donor transplants.
Tired, so tired.
Exhausted, but now halfway through their journey of Africa the hard way, hopes are high.
At least we're out of the proverbial. And that feels good.
Time now to admire the sights and meet up with local characters.
And this one, Jesus.
Enjoy the local delicacies.
That's not bad, actually.
And ease those aching muscles. Africa the hard way, Monday at 10 on Discovery.
Africa the hard way.
For the last 6.5 weeks, the Trans-Afrique expedition has been battling its way through East Africa. For the last 7 days, they have been struggling to escape the rocky, muddy clutches of the Omo Valley. Morale is slipping.
Tired, so tired. Really finding it a complete strain.
For the 15 young men and women who have paid to take part in this expedition through Africa, the going has been getting tougher and tougher and tougher. presently they and their 12-ton truck seem to be stuck at the bottom of a ravine. They've been here all day, struggling to get the truck out.
Got a bit of rebuilding to do, and then we'll give it another try. I mean, no point in being despondent. It's got to be done, so we'll do it again and we'll get it right this time.
But everything they try seems to get them deeper into trouble.
Are you all right? Okay.
Expedition leader Dave Barton is beginning to get really worried.
Lightning, clouds coming over. So we've got to get out tonight because, like, well, we've just come down about 2,000 metres in the mountain, and maybe it rains there this afternoon, by midnight the water might get here, even if it don't rain here. So we don't want to be like, I mean, the truck needs a wash, but not in this situation, and it's quite a steep hill out.
Times now to get out of this, and we're still here. The wheels aren't spinning and it's dry, but we're just not doing it.
Pull the chain you want tight.
Yeah, I haven't.
Well, you've got it like dog-legging round everybody.
It's 1 a.m. and, as a last resort, a chain and tackle is used to try and winch the truck from the ravine.
Get some slack on that chain. Yeah? All right, step over the other side of it now. Okay. Step over the other side of it. And now you can shine the light.
How does it look, mate?
It'll pull the truck up that way, then.
Move over.
Right, it's done it before.
Keep away from that chain. Keep away from the chain.
The truck is out, but one of the group had a narrow escape.
I was very, very worried for a moment. So when it's dark, I was following someone and they got caught up and flicked a branch back and it hit me straight in the bottom of the left eye. And I just thank Christ it wasn't one of those acacia thorns, because I really think I would have lost it. But it's fine now, it's all right. But you know, when you're tired and you're panicking and all of a sudden you think you're gone blind as well, it doesn't go down too well. But at least we're out of the proverbial. And that feels good.
It's been 7 days of digging and shoving and pushing and heaving sand mats around, and it gets to you after a while. And well, I'm not in like tip-top fitness condition, tip-top shape for doing this kind of thing either, but I'm getting there. So yeah, I walked this afternoon as well to pick up the mats, kind of tire me out a lot too.
Cable and chain back on.
But I mean, it's great to be out.
The morning after their ordeal. As they begin to stir, each member of the Trans-Afrique group was able to look back on why they were here, in the middle of the East African wilderness. They had all come in search of something, each for their own personal reasons. The expedition leader, Dave Barton, had promised excitement and adventure, but no one had expected this level of hardship. They were still in the depths of Ethiopia, low on food and water, and a long way from the Kenyan border and safety.
I think we're all feeling very, very tired at the moment. It was a tough one yesterday, but we managed to get over a couple of riverbanks and set up camp. The important thing now is we've got to find some water and press on towards the border. just keep going, basically. But as you can see, we're all in a bit of a state at the moment, just very tired and very dirty, filthy. But we'll do it, we'll make it.
We're lucky, we've got a nice morning today, and in any other conditions, you'd be glad to be alive.
In the depths of their fatigue and dehydration, the group turn their backs on the African landscape. For now, it's just a case of gritted teeth and survival. Then, miraculously, they came across a village. And where there was a village, there would also be water.
I think they might be Bume people, but that's only a guess. I'm not sure.
They were indeed the Bume people. Strikingly dressed in jewels and beads, the Bume clearly felt awkward and shy in the presence of the strange intruders. As Lewis was finding, communication wasn't easy. Although Joanne was getting more response from the children. As thanks for the water the villagers had provided, the group offered what gifts they had. But as the Bume people politely indicated, ornamental paper fans are no substitute for food to a hungry mother and child. But all the group could offer were razor blades, since their own food levels were critically low. Dave Barton was worried.
At the moment, we're in the middle of a acacia thorn plain. We've lost the road. Well, we went off the road to the right and couldn't find it again because there was a lot of soft mud. But if we keep going southeast, then we're towards the Omo River. The road we know is next to the river. So should find the road in a couple of hours' time. If not, we'll have to get the compass out and find the Kenya border.
Like a log, eh?
Yeah.
Ragged and worn, the group was struggling to keep their spirits up. The romance of their journey to the heart of Africa had been dulled by too much mud and too much pain.
Tempers are low. We're really getting down to basics now. No, it's not actually that bad. I think people are coping quite well. We're about, if we find our way out of here, we're about a day's drive, yeah, the Kenya border, something like that. And I think everyone's looking at that as being a major sort of turning point. Everything will improve when we hit Kenya. The fact that we've probably got another 500 miles to drive before we find a cigarette shop is neither here nor there.
But even in their tiredness, there was a feeling that perhaps the worst was over. As they prepared for the push out of Ethiopia, some were already beginning to relive the perils encountered and overcome during the previous weeks.
We had one section where the mountain had given way and there was a crevice that came in. And I was in front of the truck and I signalled to Dave to stop and to lay a sand mat over this particular point because the road wasn't wide enough. And he went for it. And at that point I thought he'd lost it and I couldn't look, I had to go on. And then there's a secondary fear of being the only person left in the Omo Valley in Ethiopia while everybody else is dead at the bottom of the ravine.
For about 10 minutes.
But I would rather cope with that than going over the edge in the truck. I guess it's my instinct for survival, which everybody here has, and if we ran out of water completely and ran out of food, I'm sure that would come out on everybody. It's dog eat dog.
If it was
I've been thinking of Lord of the Flies quite recently.
So, but it's fungal, isn't it?
But yesterday that was my instinct for survival and I jumped out and that's the only way I could cope with it, and I'm still here. I'm very happy to be alive.
Others in the group were alive, but far from happy. Isabel, the outspoken French polisher from Airdrie, had found the going too painful, too grueling, too tiring to be even remotely described as a holiday.
9 days, still digging our way out. Just go for it. Complete resignation from my part. And I know we'll get out of it, you know. I know there's absolutely no question about getting out. It's just a question of when. So maybe today, maybe tomorrow, who knows? Let's hope it's soon. Tired, so tired. Really finding it a complete strain.
The Trans-Afrique expedition had begun its back-breaking trip in Nairobi, the Kenyan capital. After travelling north through Ethiopia, they turned back at the Simien Mountains and headed southwest to the remote Omo Valley. They had been the first explorers to attempt this route, and they still weren't certain of success. 7 weeks into the trip, and they are again lost, reduced to navigating by the compass and following the camel tracks.
Car insurance prices are down at Swinton. Contact your local branch for a quote.
Laguna by Renault. It's all worked out beautifully.
I must have that package here in Sydney by close of business Wednesday. Well, it's crucial, do you understand?
Don't worry, we'll DHL it.
Charlotte, hold all my calls.
Mon disque dur est plein. Oh, il faut que j'archive 500 MB ou je suis fichu.
Oh, ça, c'est embêtant. J'ai entendu dire qu'il travaillait sur un nouveau procédé laser pour stocker de l'information.
Le laser? Qui fait ça?
Ah, IBM. Oui, IBM. Ils disent même qu'on pourra stocker 10 fois plus de données.
C'est incroyable.
Hey, listen, Colgate Total keeps on protecting you, even after you finish brushing. Colgate Total's antibacterial protection helps fight against plaque and cavities while you're working, and even against tartar and gum problems while you're enjoying yourself. Colgate Total, brushing that works between brushings.
I think I'll just powder my nose.
Kleenex quilted toilet tissue is specially quilted to give it cushion softness and super absorbency. Now available in a 9-roll pack.
Once more, the group find themselves pushing the truck through thick, smelly, axle-deep mud. They're still in Ethiopia, fighting their way out of the Omo Valley. But at least they've made it to the valley floor, and they know that they've journeyed where no trucking expedition has ever been before.
We're right in the centre of the Omo National Park now. Just seen a herd of water buffaloes gazelles, antelopes and things running around, and yeah, it's great to be here. We just went past this morning as well the lodge, or the game park headquarters, which we saw marked on the map. We didn't know if it existed or where it was, but we saw it on the horizon, a few sort of huts and houses, and that was a great, very reassuring sight to know that we're actually somewhere recognisable. People in there told us as well, they said, you know, where have you come from? We said from Madji, and they told us that, well, no one's ever driven from Madji before, and so we're the first people to drive a vehicle down the road that we've come along. So I mean, that's quite a great feeling. It's quite a great experience, if you like, to be the first adventurers to come this way.
I find it absolutely amazing that we've made it, and I mean, it's difficult in a 4x4, but to do it in a 12.5-ton truck, I think we're all pretty proud of ourselves right now, because it's a heck of an achievement to do that.
In the back of the truck, spirits are also reviving. The despondency of recent weeks is beginning to lift. The meandering camel tracks are becoming more established, and they're heading in the right direction, towards the Kenyan border. On the way, the group met up with a crowd of Bume tribespeople and Sudanese refugees. After so much hardship, the travellers began bartering for souvenirs. Anything which would confirm that they really had been to Omo, that it hadn't all been a horrible nightmare.
Where?
Inga was interested in the jewellery. As she attempted to test the material of the necklace with her teeth, the young Bume tribesman must have wondered whether this stranger was going to eat her dowry. As the locals watched the unexpected commercial spectacle unfold, the group parted willingly with their remaining Ethiopian currency.
Ah, yeah, that is Kenya. Ah, right. Where's the road? Where does the road go?
Dave, meanwhile, was checking the route ahead, under the watchful eyes of a couple of veteran travellers and a beetle.
I reckon it's a Goliath beetle. It's certainly the biggest beetle we've seen on the trip so far. And you can feel the strength in the legs as well, and that beautiful gloss on the wing cases that he's trying to get underneath my hand to get into a bit of shade, I think. I don't think he's too happy being exposed to the light. In fact, he just keeps trying to burrow into my fingers between... Oh, wow, he's pushed my fingers apart there, no problem. What's he going to do is he's going to head for the shade. He's going to head for the shade. He can sense brighter and darker. Look, he's looking up, sees darkness over there. I'll head for that. Or a nice rotten tree trunk.
But in Africa, there's intriguing wildlife and there's troublesome wildlife.
Lewis has got a jigger just here in his toe, and it's a small worm that comes from a jigger flea, which is bigger than a normal flea. And the flea's larvae stay in muddy soil, and when they're in the muddy soil, they stick to the bottom of your feet on the mud and then burrow into your skin. And it hurts a bit, eh? And when they burrow into the skin, they lay eggs in there, and they grow as well because they eat all your flesh. Right. So, like, the worms now come out, and the secret of these is to get all the worm out. Because if you leave a little bit in, then it's going to just grow again and give you hassle later on. And what you've got to do, look, here's the worm. See it with the black thing, like you said? Yeah, good. You've got to go round and round like that. And whip him round the stick and pull him out.
At long last, the travellers are leaving Ethiopia. On the other side of the river is Kenya. Within a few days, when the rains start, this crossing will be impassable to man, beast or truck. But for the moment, fortune was smiling on the beleaguered group of overland travellers. It was the moment for which they'd all been yearning over the last 5 weeks. Returning to Kenya was like a rebirth, and spirits soared as the group sped along the metalled roads. Travelling down the west side of Lake Turkana, the group's first stop was Loki Tong, where supplies and food could be bought. The graceful, shy Turkanas know about tourists and cameras, but they pretend not to mind. Suitably replenished, the group continued to head south towards the border with Tanzania. Briefly, it was a time for the group to reflect on the privations and hardships that lay behind them. They had made it through East Africa's toughest terrain and could be proud of that fact. The villagers they were passing now seemed unconcerned by yet another truckload of white people whizzing by. With the imposing profile of Mount Meru in sight, the overlanders sought out the town of Arusha and its famously well-appointed campsite. The running water was clean and deliciously sweet, and the food was cooked by someone else.
Can I pay for mine now?
Yeah, one thing at a time.
Okay, yeah.
At night, they opened the bar. The group hadn't enjoyed an evening like this since that night in Jima, more than a lifetime ago. And here they swapped tall tales of nail-biting adventure with the other overlanders who were passing through, while a motley bunch of strummers fought their way through a few old evergreen tunes.
They can sing. They're quite sing, it's not to sing.
The next morning, at the foot of Mount Kilimanjaro, the group set off to explore another Africa. Hiring a fleet of four-wheel drive vehicles, the overlanders venture into the picture postcard world of the Ngorongoro crater and all of the stunning wildlife it supports. In its own way, it was indeed breathtaking, but it wasn't the same as pushing a 12-ton truck up a mountain of mud. That really does take your breath away. For all of its glorious beauty, the group came away from the Ngorongoro excursion feeling that this was only a small and rather tame part of the real Africa, the Africa they had been battling through for the last 10 weeks. It was pretty, but it wasn't what they'd come to find. At the next campsite, a little way south of the Ngorongoro crater, as the sleeping bags were laid out to air and dry after the heavy rain of the night before, some of the group began to look back on their experiences they had endured and the challenges they'd overcome.
Oh yeah, I think everyone's heaps better since we've left Ethiopia. It's funny though, because that's all we seem to be talking about, Ethiopia. Now we're all gone, it was just the best place on earth.
For Dave, it was a chance to work in the truck.
We're in Morogoro, Tanzania. I'm just changing this wheel because it's got no tread left on it. Because some of the roads we come down earlier took all the tread off it, and then we've just come down really good roads from Arusha, and like it started to break up. So I'm going to put the spear on.
When Dave isn't leading expeditions across Africa, he runs a campsite where he's based in Malawi. And this morning he's just received some unwelcome news from home.
And then a bloke died on the campsite of malaria. A bloke who'd been there a couple of months, who I don't think I know. I can't place him. Apparently he used to be a driver for Jason. It might be a bloke I met a couple of years ago. He used to drive for money company. But he packed in like ages ago. So. And also my dog's been ate by a crocodile, which is like pretty grim. But it's better than having one knocked over by a bus, isn't it? I reckon. And he was a real good dog, so I'm sure he'd have gone out with a bit of a fight.
Heading south towards Tanzania, the roads are clear and the going good. The group had now been on the road for 10 weeks and much of the earlier disharmony and tension has evaporated. But Africa still had a few more surprises in store for them. It began routinely enough with a stop at the grocery store run by Mr. S.S. Ngoma. But Mr. Ngoma was not just a grocer. He was a man of remarkable faith and a great